How are we doing on time, Amber?
We are good. I have 12 o'clock and the recording has started and we are live on Facebook.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to the third shop talk that we've had. The first two, my background was actually my farm shop. Had the opportunity to do that. It's a little different this Thursday. This is the third Thursday of the month in July, which means FFA Foundation golf tournament. So we're socially distancing and raising money for the FFA Foundation. You've got some PAS and FFA state officers that posed for a background picture for me, and just want to remember that that is our future, 4-H and FFA, and the ag groups are all doing a great job, Farm Bureau and others supporting FFA. And with that, I just want to remind everybody that when you're on this, you are muted, and your video, you're not being videoed, or your video does not work. To ask a question, a couple of options depending how you're coming on. One could be hitting the question and answer box on your device. Also, go ahead, raise your hand if you're able to do that. If you're on a phone, remind me, Amber, is it *9 to get in the queue?
Yes, it is.
Okay, *9 for that. So with that, I'd like to introduce our special guest. We have, for a special guest, we have Minnesota Senator Tina Smith that's joining us. Senator, I can't tell for sure if you're in DC or if you're in Minnesota, but either way, we really appreciate that opportunity, and proud and honored to introduce a friend of Minnesota agriculture, a friend of Minnesota Farm Bureau, Senator Tina Smith. So, Senator, please.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. I'm really glad to be with you, and I appreciate your picture in the background, and I am here in Washington. I'm laughing because just a minute ago when you put up my picture, I realized that I'm wearing exactly the same thing that I'm wearing today. So that's the way it goes, you know, sometimes it just happens. But I'm just great to be with you, Amber, and also Patrice and all of you, and I appreciate the chance to be invited. And I thought I'd just give you a little bit of the kind of the lay of the land in terms of how I'm seeing things, and then welcome your questions, and just appreciate so much your friendship, and Kevin and Amber, your friendship, and really good advice, as I have. We're really starting when I was lieutenant governor, but I'm now here in the Senate. So, you know, when it comes to what's happening right now, I often use the analogy of an earthquake. I feel like in some ways COVID is like an earthquake that's kind of shaken our economic foundations and also our health foundations. It's affected everybody, but not everybody the same. I think it was last week, I was doing a Zoom meeting, and somebody from farm country said, he said, you know, it's like, what does he say? He says, like, it's like we're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. And I think that that's a really good analogy, especially as I think about what I'm hearing from Minnesota's ag sector and farmers and ranchers and producers right there. You know, it's certainly a very, very challenging time, and not everybody is experiencing the challenges in exactly the same way. You know, in some sectors like milk, we're starting to see prices come back up. Things are, you know, prices seem like they're maybe getting a little bit better, but there's, you know, still a lot of challenges. The weather is good, and I know that a lot of you are seeing some, you know, things couldn't be going better in some ways, but then other folks are experiencing bad, you know, a little bit too much rain and hail, and so that's a mixed bag. I'm glad to see that I think that the ethanol, some of our ethanol plants are mostly opened up again, except for the Gevo plant in Laverne, and that is certainly a good thing for corn producers. And I'm just going to switch here. Certainly a good thing. But, you know, we still are dealing with these these sort of small refinery waivers that have taken just a big bite out of the ethanol market. And I'm going to continue to push on that and hold the administration accountable for following the law and helping support the ethanol market, even in this place where we've seen a big downturn, just frankly because of demand. I know that it's been a really rocky road, especially for pork producers, but not only pork producers. Beef cattle and turkey producers have also had a hard time. The processing facilities I know are coming back up, and that is good, but I know that there's still a backlog and still a challenge. So these are some of the things I'm thinking about as we look at the next COVID bill and what we need to be able to do. I am specifically working on some support and help for independent turkey producers who haven't been able to take advantage so far because of the way their businesses are structured on some of the USDA aid. And I think that that's something that we ought to be able to fix. And I'm also working closely with Colin in the House, and also Chuck Grassley and Amy and Joni Ernst from Iowa, of course, on what we can do to help pork producers and get some indemnification for just the horrible need to euthanize part of our herds because of the supply chain problems in pork processing. As I said, thankfully that's getting a little bit better, and but that doesn't mean that there hasn't been damage done. And then I also just feel like there are some things that we can do for dairy. I'm working on and I'm introducing legislation on to get dairy farmers access to improved credit to help through this process, the Dairy Recourse Loan Program. So those are some of my priorities for what we're going to be working on next on CARES, the next CARES Act. I am also just want to talk a minute about healthcare, because this has been such a challenge. And of course, rural healthcare has been challenged already. We see so many rural hospitals that have been on the verge of closing. We've been seeing that happening for quite a few years, and unfortunately, because of COVID, those hospitals have been put under even more stress. So I have been working in a bipartisan way to make sure that publicly owned rural hospitals can participate in the PPP program. We got that done. That I think has been very helpful. I'm also continue to push on legislation that helps with rural health workforce, which is an issue. And one thing that's been, I think, a good thing that's happened is some of the advances that we've made around telehealth. After a lot of years of talking about expanding telehealth, in the course of just weeks, we did a significant expansion of telehealth for mental health and for physical health, even physical therapy. And the providers have been able to move into it. We've been pushing to make sure that those providers get the reimbursement that they need so they can afford to do it. And the patients really like it also. So that, I think, is something that I'm pushing on, again, in a bipartisan way, to extend through this emergency and also past the emergency, so that access to healthcare can be extended and improved. And of course, it reminds all of us about how important broadband is, and the need to continue our work to get broadband built out where we need it, everywhere we need it. Broadband should be like a public utility. I'm not saying it should be publicly owned, but it should be available like when you turn on when you flip your light switch in the morning and turn it off at night. And I have gotten some legislation into the original CARES Act to accomplish that. Kind of make it harder for people to get cut off from broadband during the emergency, but we need to do a lot more there. Just the last thing I'll mention is that it was certainly good news that we moved to implementation of the Usmca. That was something that I was glad to be able to support. I think it does lift up Minnesota ag producers and has been the kind of certainty that we needed for those Canadian and Mexican markets. I know that there's still a lot of uncertainty about what's happening with China, and the phase 1 deals that were negotiated at the end of the year seem a little bit hard to know exactly where it's going right now, with all of the additional kind of drama around China. They made some really big promises about purchasing ag products in that phase 1 deal, and I know a lot of folks are worried about whether that's going to come to fruition or not. So that is mostly, almost exclusively, in the hands of the administration, but I want you to know that I'm paying close attention to that too, because I know how important it is, how important those export markets are. So, you know, a lot of things on my plate, a lot of things I'm interested in hearing you about, you know, as we move into August and the fall. Of course, I'm always thinking about farm safety issues and what we need to do to make sure that folks can have a safe harvest. And I just hope that everyone is doing okay and doing well. I know there's a lot of stress right now and a lot of stress in all parts of the state, but especially in farm country. So I'm thinking about you, I'm in touch with you, and in touch with Kevin all the time, and Amber, and just hope you know that you can always call us if there's anything that you need. With that, Amber, I will turn it back to you and just thank you so much for including me.
Thank you, Senator. Do you have time for a question or two?
I do, yeah.
Awesome. So the first
I was just
question we
looking
had.
around at my phone because I have a vote coming up, but I've got time before my votes.
Perfect. So the question we have is, where is the PPP for Small Business Forgiveness Act in the process, and what is your stance on this legislation?
Yeah. Well, the PPP loan forgiveness program, I've heard from a lot of businesses around the state that it has really been a lifeline. It has provided a lot of help to businesses, and I think we've had billions of dollars that have come into Minnesota in that way. It has also been far from perfect, and I've heard a lot of frustration about you know, there was one set of rules for PPP in the beginning, and then we came back and we made the rules more flexible because of feedback we heard, but that was also a challenge for people who made decisions based on one situation, and then the situation changed. There's about $130 billion still left in the PPP fund right now, and I think a lot of that is because people are just not exactly sure what to expect. They want to make sure that if they use those loans that they're going to be forgiven at the end of the day. I also have heard from a lot of my friends in farm country that those PPP loans, and the EIDL loans too, they really weren't designed well to help a lot of farmers in their businesses, just the way the business works and the way the way farmers pay themselves or pay their family members. It just hasn't really been very effective. So it's one of the reasons that I'm pushing for some, you know, looking for other targeted help that we can get to agriculture, whether it is through USDA and the CCC program, or whether it's tweaks that we could make to PPP to just, you know, anything that we can do to make it work. And last thing I'll say is I really do think that remains a big need for help to the ethanol sector that also didn't have anything particular done for them. And, you know, that ripples through the whole economy, right? Because you got problems with ethanol on one side and livestock on the other side. You know, corn producers and soy producers for biofuels are in between a rock and a hard place.
Do we have any other questions, Amber?
Nope, that's the only one. We should get the senator off to votes.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Senator, for your time today. We always appreciate the working relationship. The Farm Bureau members on the call need to know not only have we had Senator Smith's staff on each call as we've started this project, and we appreciate that, having staff from both Minnesota U.S. senators, but also constant contact with her team, both from DC and Minnesota. So we appreciate that. And with that, Senator, again, thank you for your time, and have a good rest of the day.
Well, thanks so much. I'll be heading back to Minnesota, hopefully a little bit later this afternoon, and I hope to see you all soon. Unfortunately, not at Farm Fest. I'm still like so sad I won't see everyone at Farm Fest, but next year.
All right. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Bye.
So the next speaker we've got, our keynote speaker, is Assistant Commissioner Patrice Bailey. Patrice is joining us, I think, probably from the Department of Agriculture. By the looks of the background, it looks like possibly a familiar area. So I appreciate that. Your Department of Agriculture works each and every day for us as we go through this. We appreciate the weekly calls that we've had with the commissioners as we've gone through the COVID-19. Appreciate their support. And Commissioner, I'd ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, what it's important that we know as we get to know you, and then the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate it. Hello to everyone that's on the line. A little bit about myself. I'm originally from Harlem, New York. I grew up 5 blocks from the Apollo Theater, if anybody's ever been to the Apollo, world famous theater. And there was no agriculture in New York City. There isn't. Everything is upstate New York. And, it wasn't until, I was about to go to college and my mom said, so what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go to law school. And she said, there's no lawyers. There's too many lawyers. Why don't you do something else? And of course, I said, well, what else is that? And then she said, do agriculture. And of course, the first thing that popped into my head was, I don't want to be a farmer. So that's the stereotype. And she said, it's so much bigger than that. And so I found myself off to Texas for college. And she was right. It was so much bigger than that. And I was able to see agriculture in a whole different light, where it wasn't just farming, but, big business, and being able to see the amount of opportunities that are out there within STEM. And so fast forward to where we are today. I had this great opportunity to serve here at MDA, and Tom brought me on board as my background in agriculture. My BS and my master's is in ag ed. So for all the ag ed folks out there, I'm in good company. And so the first thing that Tom wanted me to do was to put together an emerging farmer task force or working group, which we have now. And what that consists of is really just kind of looking at where Minnesota agriculture is today. If you look when it comes to agricultural production, and we have so many acres, about 63,000 acres of land here in Minnesota. However, the huge deficit that we do have is the ag opportunity when it comes to agriculture being equal for everyone. And right now, that is not happening, but this working group that we have now is going to serve to sort of equalize the field, mostly through an equity lens. And so the process that we had went through last year was to do 6 listening sessions around the state. We did that, and what we found is various themes of barriers, and there were some opportunities, but mostly the barriers sort of stem around financial areas, racism, land availability, which happened to have been cited as the #1 barrier for emerging farmers. You may ask, so what is an emerging farmer? I would categorize an emerging farmer, it being someone from 0 experience, hey, I'm interested, I want to get in, to about 10 years experience, someone that wants to be innovative, get into the field, but the barrier that they are going to face is not just land, but credit availability. Are you going to be able to sell a certain product? So the products that you sell oftentimes creates the barrier, because you're going to need other equipment, and other equipment means you're going to need to have grants and loans to be able to apply for. And so when we wrote this report for the Emerging Farmers Report, and I want to thank Ariel Kagan who was our lead staff writer, did an amazing job in putting this together. So the areas and the folks that we want to actually focus on who are not in the agriculture landscape right now, in terms of emerging farmers, are people of color, Native Indigenous, veterans, women, people with disabilities, and I will also add the LGBTQ community as well. These are populations that we must attract and we must reach out to make sure that the services that MDA has extends over to the populations that I just described. And so fast forward, to listening sessions are over. We have the report. The report's finished. It was, we testified. We had folks come in and as testifiers to talk about, some of the barriers that they go through as emerging farmers. And not all the emerging farmers that we had were people of color. We had white emerging farmers that said, even as a person of privilege, I still have issues with these same barriers. And so there's the commonality of where the barriers are. And so in May of this year, the legislature had created the Emerging Farmer Working Group, which we have now. And so we've been in the process of making sure that we have foundational pieces. We have an amazing planning team that is really looking at what should this look like, the vision, who should be on it, how easy should the access be to apply. And we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to apply so that their voice is lifted up beyond where they are currently. And so we really are in the process of promoting the Emerging Farmer Working Group in the next 3 to 4 weeks, that we will have a nomination form process where people can apply directly on MDA's website. We also have a website for emerging farmers if you want to go to the website and type Emerging Farmer Working Group. And also, we want to make sure that we capture all emerging farmers. So we do have a Gov Delivery sign up, and I'm going to put that in the chat. Have Amber put that in the chat so that people can be able to go and apply. Go up and sign up for being an emerging farmer and getting the updates about this exciting opportunity that's coming through. So those are sort of a lot of the major pieces that emerging farmers are dealing with. Obviously, that's not all the barriers that emerging farmers face, but these are some of the issues that emerging farmers face currently. So I see Amber had put the Gov Delivery link into the chat. Thank you so much, Amber. And so please go there and sign up for the Gov Delivery system that we have for MDA. Does anyone have any questions for me? I'm more than happy to answer any questions that people have.
Amber, do you have any questions in the queue?
We don't have any from the attendees yet, but again, use that chat function or the Q&A button down below.
One thing, thank you, Anne Marie. One thing that I wanted to say is, and I wanted to back up a little bit. So how we have the process here at MDA, Tom Peterson is the commissioner, Andrea Vabu is the deputy, and myself and Whitney Place are the assistant commissioners. And out of between myself and Whitney, there's 6 divisions that we manage, and of those I have 3, and Emerging Farmers is in that portfolio that I manage. So it's really a dear project to me personally, especially a person of color that did not grow up on a farm, but went to school for agriculture. And so it's really important that we get the message out.
We have a question for you. Is there any specific outreach that the Department of Agriculture is doing with veterans to help them get into farming?
We are. I know that the Veterans Hospital actually has a farmer's market that I believe opens on Tuesdays. And we also are working with the Veterans Coalition to actually have veterans to be a part of this, working group for sure.
That's great to hear. We had another question come through that asked, how is your team working to bridge generational gaps that often restrict access to land and capital for emerging farmers?
Yeah, you know, that's the conversation that we're working with right now. And it's an ongoing process in terms of land availability. And, you know, one of the things that we're working on is to actually reach into communities that normally agriculture is absent from, to make sure that people know about, you know, we have a program called Farm Link, and Farm Link is currently for, I like to think of it as sort of a Craigslist for land. You know, if a person says, you know, I want to retire, I don't have any current heirs I'm going to leave this land to, then Farm Link is a great process for someone to actually post the fact that they are looking for someone to buy the land or rent the land, and someone who's looking for that opportunity actually have that opportunity granted to them. You know, it's something that we are publicizing a lot more, but all of the services that MDA has, we want to make sure that we're reaching out Native Indigenous populations, that we're reaching women, LGBTQ, that we're reaching veterans, and we're highlighting those opportunities through the working group.
Josie shared that link in the comments as well. One more question, if you don't mind. What can we do to get more students? This is from an attendee. What can we do to get more students of color involved in 4-H and FFA?
You know, I was just talking about Oswald, just about this same issue about a month ago, because, you know, the idea of having more students of color in agriculture, in FFA is essential, because even though a lot of students of color may not live in a rural area, or they don't, you know, haven't been exposed to agriculture, they still use agriculture even if they don't know they're using it. And it's really important not just to say, well, this is where your food comes from, but it's more important also, in my opinion, that that exposure to agriculture is a benefit that everyone gets a chance to actually touch and feel and smell, you know, really what agriculture has to offer. And that's just a very small snippet for that. One of the things that I love to do is to go out to many of the schools and talk to middle schoolers and high schoolers, just to talk about, what does a farmer look like? You know, And oftentimes I may go dressed up like this, and they'll give me the list of bib overalls, John Deere hat, you know, the Red Wing boots and all this other stuff. And I said, wow, that's pretty stereotypical, but can the person be dressed like this? And they say, no, of course not. And so it's a good way to be able to have a teachable moment at those points, to be able to say agriculture is so much bigger than where your mind is. But a lot of times, you know, trying to see an example of what agriculture looks like in communities of color are not always present. And so, you know, we're having to go to the communities to make sure that the opportunities are also heard in those communities as well.
The next question kind of relates to some of those strings, but how can we encourage people of diverse backgrounds to become involved in agriculture and our organizations like Farm Bureau?
You know, I actually, everything that I do, every decision that's made within my area, I always look at it through an equity lens through myself. And I'm always thinking about how can we reach more people? How can we have more community involved in grants and loan reviews? How do we have more people that can serve on emerging farmer working group that may be an urban farmer, someone who is a master gardener, such as, you know, think of his name, Melvin Giles, I'm sorry, Melvin Giles. Great opportunity to learn from someone on that level about urban farming. One of the things that I am always thinking about is how do we get more diversity within FFA and 4-H, and how do we expose agriculture to more schools? When we're doing farm to school and farm to table, how do we, you know, have more exposure to Minnesota Ag in the classroom? So these are different ways that we're, you know, trying to make sure that diversity is spread throughout.
That's great. And I was kind of hoping, can you kind of expand on that? Obviously, Minnesota Farm Bureau and a lot of the participants on today's webinar are based at the county level. What actions can kind of the local membership take to make sure that organizations all across agriculture are opening their doors? How do we get people more involved at the local level as well?
Well, one of the things that we can get more people more involved is just to have more memberships in the metro. You know, there's lots of organizations, food, we can work with food markets and, you know, cottage food producers, you know, and another thing that is a great idea is a lot of our retail food inspectors are obviously working with communities within the metro. You know, could it be that they can also have membership packets that they can leave with different businesses that are in these communities, so that people are aware? I think the biggest impediment is the fact that people are not aware of Minnesota Farm Bureau that are in the metro as much as they are outstate. And I think, you know, a big thing that I like to do is publicize things that are happening with Farm Bureau, with if all of our ag commodities on Twitter. So I'm looking at how a lot of people are really into Twitter and TikTok and Snapchat and, you know, Instagram. And these are unconventional ways in which we can reach people, you know, that we've never been able to reach before. And so that's, in my opinion, where agriculture needs to go, is to be able to use the technology that we have to be able to reach people that still have the stereotype of what agriculture was, but is what agriculture isn't today. And so, you know, we have a lot of work to do in that regard, but it's very promising to be able to have more voices from different communities to be able to be involved in the organizations that we have to help them grow and to be able to get the word out. I think it's an amazing opportunity.
I agree. There's a question kind of in the same vein of what's been already talked about, but how is MDA working with farm organizations to find ways to help emerging farmers overcome some of the barriers they're facing?
Well, one of the things that we have, this is not a new program, but there's a urban microloan program. And this microloan program is geared to immigrants and people of color as another form of an opportunity for people to get started. That particular loan was at $10,000, but now it's at $20,000, and that will go into effect August 1st. So we're in the process of doing a press release right now to be able to promote that program so that people know more about that. The other thing is that we're constantly making sure that our divisions are letting people know about, in different organizations, about the opportunities to apply for different grants. The great thing about the working group is that we can accept private funding, so that people can be able to have yet another option to apply for funding if the normal chains of process isn't available. We also work very closely with the Latino Economic Development Center, and it's a great relationship because we're serving similar populations, and so we often team up to be able to make sure that we're sharing different grants and loans and different opportunities. The last thing that I would say is that Minnesota does have 4 ethnic councils. And so through the ethnic councils, that's another way that Farm Bureau can be able to recruit and get more people of diverse background within Farm Bureau. So that's another group that we work with to also look at different forms of scholarship and loans as well, different grants.
Any other questions, Amber? Otherwise, I have a question.
Go for it, Mr. President.
Go for it, Kevin.
Commissioner, you're somewhat new to the department, but you've been there a while. You're one of the newer commissioners, certainly. Share with us a little bit, what have been some of the surprises to you and your new responsibilities, whether it's just this program or the other areas you cover as well? Any surprises at the department?
One of the surprises that I've seen is, and it's not, I don't want to say it's a surprise, but it's an opportunity is what I actually see it as, is the lack of diversity that we do have within agriculture, and the lack of markets that agriculture is actually in terms of radio in diverse markets such as North Minneapolis, or whether we're working with the Somali population and getting into their publications. The other thing that we're working on, we have a new liaison, her name is Shannon Kessner, who lives in Fond du Lac, is to be able to make sure that all 11 tribal nations know that agriculture has these programs that do exist currently, and making sure that everyone knows about the different options that we have. But the surprises, I just like to say the surprises are potential opportunities for us to do better, and for us to continue to do the great work that we currently do, but for more people to actually see it. Obviously, with agriculture, historically, you know, there has been predatory lending, there's been racism that still continues to exist. And so these are things that we're tackling as we speak. You know, we've had a concept cafe, which is more of an internal webinar or a panel that we put on, and we focused heavily last week on structural racism. You know, how do we you know, look at microaggressions and, you know, within agriculture, and how do we respond to that? And so that process is ongoing, but, you know, those what may seem as surprises are actually opportunities for great things to happen.
Maybe building on that a little bit, where do you see as some next steps for Farm Bureau, the other farm organizations? How do we better engage, or give us some specific examples of things we can do, whether it be at the local or the state level?
You know, looking at social media as a way to team up is a great way to reach more people in terms of conventional ways that people get their information. I think that, you know, we've always been within agriculture, you know, huge when we go to our traditional ways of, you know, the traditional communication channels, but really being intentional to reach these communities, communities of color, Native Indigenous, you know, that's a real big piece that we're working on right now. And I think that some of the examples that we can work on is not just non-traditional communication channels, but, you know, we can actually promote the Emerging Farmer Working Group. That's a huge way in which all the ag commodity groups can actually be a part of, and be able to have their membership know about this other section of emerging farmers that are eager to work with all the ag commodities, but just don't know how to do it. Many don't know how to get started. And this is a great opportunity to be able to, you know, to actually do that. One thing that I think that COVID has sort of peeled back the onion of how important agriculture is, not just in Minnesota, but how important it is to all communities in Minnesota. You know, it's really shown, you know, that agriculture is integral to every part of a way of life, and that people need to see the things that agriculture has to offer. So those are just some of the examples. You know, just the commissioners and just MDA staff just continually to you know, to highlight the great work that's happening. The last thing that I would say is in January, you know, we have the Emerging Farmer Conference. If we can have more participation from the ag community, more so than we have now, just as ways to promote that, you know, Farm Bureau being there and other organizations, it's a huge platform and a huge help for people to know that, you know, there is these opportunities out there that you can actually engage with.
Thank you for that. Amber, I believe we've got another question in the queue.
What are some of your other responsibilities you cover? Emerging farmers and what else? It seems in this time where ag consumer education is so important, what is the department doing? It's been impressive to see Minnesota Ag in the Classroom doing virtual tours and staying active. Thanks for your support to keep ag in the classroom active and promoting ag statewide.
Well, I love ag in the classroom. We have 4 virtual tours, and I actually joined the last one on Tuesday. I wish I would have been at all 3 of them. But my responsibilities is one, outreach for the whole agency, but I have food and feed safety, which includes pet food and manufactured food. I have dairy and meat inspection, as well as ag marketing and development. So within, say, ag marketing and development, there's trade shows, there's Minnesota Grown that's in there. There is the New Markets Commodity Committee out of there. There is, that's probably the biggest division because it has so much in it. Biofuels, solar and wind, just so much that's in that one division. And so out of the 6 divisions, I have those 3 big ones.
And we appreciate all the work you do and all of that. Do you have any other closing comments or anything, or any other questions from any of the attendees?
I just want to say, I support everything that Minnesota Farm Bureau does. Please use me as an advocate. Hopefully when the schools open up in the fall, I would love to go out to different opportunities that Minnesota Farm Bureau actually will be participating in. And I just want to say that, let's continue to work together to educate all communities in Minnesota.
Well, Commissioner, we really appreciate your time today, being
Absolutely.
part of our shop talk. This is kind of a new experience for us, and we strive to do better each and every week, and you did a great job. We appreciate the information you brought forward and look forward to working with you and the whole team.
The whole
Department
team.
of Agriculture.
I'm jealous that Tom is down playing golf right now. But,
he might be playing golf, but he's also socially distancing
I know.
and networking with an awful lot of leaders in agriculture. So appreciate that. But
No.
I will report back to him when he gets to the 6th hole to the Farm Bureau golf ball launcher that you're busy at work. So thank you for your time,
All right.
Commissioner.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Amber, do we have we've got a couple of minutes yet. I'm not sure there's a lot of news to report, but I would ask maybe if you or Josie would give us a little bit of an update on what's going on at the state capitol.
President Papp, members, I'd be happy to give a brief update of how things have gone at the Capitol. The legislature has met and adjourned from their 2nd special session of the summer and went home on Tuesday, unfortunately, without a deal on House File 3, a bill that included the bonding bill and a Farm Bureau priority of Section 179 conformity. We're certainly disappointed that lawmakers were unable to get this done this time around, but we remain hopeful that it's going to happen soon. We're certainly actively engaging with legislators in the House and the Senate and on both sides of the aisle to make sure that they understand how important conformity to Section 179 is for Farm Bureau members and those involved in agriculture as well as small businesses.
Thank you, Josie. Does anybody have any questions for Josie or Amber or the public policy team?
On behalf of Amber and myself, we want to thank all of the Farm Bureau members who responded to the Minnesota Farm Bureau Action Alert about Section 179 conformity. We had so many members reach out to their elected officials and share how this issue directly impacts their farms through a variety of different measures. It's, again, an incredibly important tax piece. And the way we look at it, the rules were changed after the fact. This is something that needs to get done and it needs to be addressed. And we heard loud and clear from our members, and I think legislators did as well, of how important this issue is. So again, thank you so much, all of you who responded to the action alert. We appreciate you all doing that.
And I do want to thank our members for responding. We try not to send out too many, try not to be burdensome, but when we do, it's an important issue. And we really appreciate coming to the table and getting those emails, making those contacts. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our Executive Director, Karen Shaffer, for some closing comments and any other remarks. Karen, please.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I'm a little envious that you get to be outside on this beautiful day while we're all stuck in the office, but someone's got to take one for the team, right? Great topic today. It's been a pleasure to get to know Assistant Commissioner Patrice Bailey, as I had worked with him previously, and I think he's a wonderful addition to the Department of Agriculture, and excited to hear more about that topic. And I think it's one of those topics that we're going to all have to continue to work on in agriculture and continue to explore ways and options to bring others outside of the traditional circle into our wonderful industry in multiple ways, shapes, and forms. Very excited that we had the Senator join us today as well. And we hope you're enjoying these shop talks. We're really proud of it. We've had great participation in the first 3, and hope you guys continue to join us every Thursday at noon. Just kind of have it as a place mark on your calendar. And I guess my last plug would just be that, to make some of these things possible and to make sure that we're at the table and to make sure that we're having these conversations that represent the critical needs of agriculture. The blood of our organization is our members. And so making sure that we just put that plug in, if you're not a Farm Bureau member, that you consider joining and consider learning all that we do on behalf of farmers and ranchers throughout the whole state, and with American Farm Bureau's role across the whole country and across the globe. So thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully the rest of us can get out and enjoy this beautiful day.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Any closing comments? Amber, anything we're forgetting?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Good. Fix my issue. I just wanted to make a plug for next week's. We will be hearing from Cynthia Christensen, our Houston County Farm Bureau President, on the importance of on mental health and stress, and how we can actively be working with each other and keeping an eye on our neighbors, and how we can help each other manage through some of these financial and emotional challenges. So the same link that you got on today will get you in next week on Thursday as well. So please share the webinar information with your friends and neighbors and future Farm Bureau members as well. We want to make sure that we're getting this information out there, especially next week's being such an important topic with all the challenges facing agriculture during current conditions.
And a special thank you to Amber and Josie, the entire team, for putting these on. Hope to see everybody next week on Shop Talk, noon on Thursdays. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.